So landmark survey was done via Novartis. They conducted a survey, and it was to determine patient the differential between what the physicians saw as what the patients were experiencing in their quality of life, and they surveyed the patients in what they demonstrated in their quality of life, and it was to determine the gap analysis between the two participants. And so Landmark 2 now is going to be a further. No, this was a totally separate, this was an infomercial saying that it will be coming out in the future, so if you get asked to participate, we're hoping that you would encourage your people to. So it's, if you Google Landmark survey, it's in the public domain, and you can see the information from the Landmark survey. And so this next Landmark 2.2 or 2.0 is just the next set of further questions building on the Landmark 1 survey. This was our own survey. This has nothing to do with anyone else.
No, I was asking, was Landmark 1 the pies that we saw before? Not what you just showed, but the ones where it showed that the physicians are interested in reduction of physical symptoms and patients want a cure.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Oh, that was from Landmark 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can, after the conference, what we can do is we can share kind of a link or something like that to the information that will explain the background to Landmark and Landmark 2.0 if that would be helpful for everybody. Okay. Right, we've given you a chance, Peter. Up you come.
So, it's the last one today, no?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to make it short then. Well, I've been requested to talk about transitioning your organization, and I still don't know now what it really means, transitioning. But I have been working all my life in multinational companies, and the cooperation between the different offices is about the same than the cooperation between our patient advocacy groups. Now, this is now the fourth Congress which we have here, and I think every time it's about happening the same. We all have a lot of fun together. We have very interesting talks. We have professors, doctors who are talking, giving us the latest news or explaining us what's happening in the MPN world. We have normally some fantastic dinners organized by Gora. And once it's over, we go home, and then for most part of the next year, we don't hear very much from each other. And I think, you know, that's a pity. I think we should have a much better cooperation, or we should try to have more cooperation between us. You know, we have a very big potential. We have over 30 groups, patient advocacy groups, and I think in total, these groups were representing more than 25,000 of patients. Now, I know there is a very clear difference between our network and the groups. You know, we as a network, we have a different object, and the patient advocacy group has a different one. But still, I would say that you know, we should try to find ways that we can, after the meetings which we're having here, but we can cooperate more. I think there are a lot of things which during the meeting are coming up here, and which have been discussed that they should be followed up. Dieter, for example, brought up the internal platform. You know, I think it's something which we could have in every PAG, and it could be used then as centralized in our MPN AN. We have problems which are coming up in research, which are coming like the problem of more and more young people, which is diagnosed. I think there the different groups, they could give more information, they could help, but we're getting more information about, you know, about young people. How many young people do we have really? We have some information from the reports which are existing, but I think every patient advocacy group, they do have additional information on that. And I think if we centralize this, or we find a way that we concentrate that information in a patient advocacy group, this could be helpful. The same is, for example, a question of a pregnant woman. It's today, you might have very few per country, but if we have 30 countries and we look, how many pregnant women we have in each country, then probably at the end we have a number of people which would allow the researchers then also to give a real basis for working on the researches. And only if we do this, we will at the end find a solution for these people which are desperately looking for solutions. The question of the brochures, obviously there's a language problem, but I mean, everybody has basically his own brochure. Is it not possible that we are working on a brochure which on a basis has more or less the same? We discuss it, what do we want to have in a brochure? And then each country, can make its own translation. I don't know if this is a good idea, it's a bad idea, I don't know. But I think these would be ways where we can cooperate. We can use the fact that we do have, we are the only global organization existing in this world for MPN. And we have to use that power what we have. And this is what we are not doing. And I think this is just a shame. I mean, from the talks which we had also from Loffelhardt, it was very interesting to hear about, what she's doing and what they are doing there. A lot of the things cannot be applied to other countries because we have different conditions in each country. But still, I fairly believe that the cooperation in these fields will lead to a better understanding and will give positive results for everybody. This is basically what I wanted to give through. Does anybody would like to give a comment on that? Do you think this is a crazy idea, or do you think that we really should work a little bit more on our cooperation, on getting more information from left and from right? For example, how to stop a phone. Anybody some comment on this before I break it?
What do you think about the idea of having a common patient information set of information that we make available to patients wherever they are in the world? If there was some sort of translation service or facility made available for that, would that be a worthwhile undertaking for us? What do you think? Or is that something that you have already and it's not really necessary at this point?
I think it's more important to first collect what is already existing.
That point?
And that we should put on our website, yeah? And there are in so many different languages, information brochures. And why should we do a next one? And there's a very fine one of NCCN. And we were talking, Peter and I were talking once to translate it in different languages, right. Maybe. Yeah, it's a perfect one, and you don't need to make a new one.
Yeah, I wasn't actually thinking about making a new one, but choosing the best in class and making it more available globally. Or
to collect what is existing, in different languages. Meanwhile. Right.
Yep.
Well, if you ask about if you ask about common material educational, it depends who is going to write it. Because I heard earlier that it's going to be asked by, if we do it, by doctors, experts, MPN experts. And from my experience, we produce patient-friendly information, which usually it's not going to be produced by doctors. doctors are reviewing our information material to make sure that medically they are correct. But the information booklets that we are giving to our patients are based on organizations that are specializing in writing patient-friendly information. So if that is the case, then I think it will be very helpful. Also, when we talk about guidelines, guidelines are very unfriendly to patients because they are written for doctors. So what we are doing, when we have a guidelines, for example, in CML, we take a medical writer who writes them in a patient-friendly language, so a lay patient can take the guidelines and read them and understand them. And so if that will be the case, I think that will be helpful. But to take the guidelines as is and produce a brochure or to produce a booklet, I think it will not be used by, at least not by me, let's say.
Good point, Fiora.
Felice?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your speaking. And I follow what Giora and Werner said, especially Werner, because in my view, we have many material. Each country is different. The normal use, the drug access in each country is different, and the approach to disease is different. And we have material in foundation, in MPN Foundation, about the general information on material, on the disease. It's possible to put in our website the link. I think it's important to create a sort of the atlas, our organization, what kind of services doing for patient, and in our website to connect for each to each website. This is my point of view. But I have a question for the audience. We are people who are volunteer for steering committee, no? But the Advocates Network is not our, it's not mine, it's not John, it's for all of you are owner of this Advocates Network. So, what do you think is important as a services, what Peter said before, to help you in your job, daily job? What the tool, what kind of the facility or project is important to run? Because you don't, it's time to not wait as we ask you or propose you some project. But it's important the project come from you. Then what are your needs in your country, in our daily advocates rule? What do you want we do as a project, for example?
I still feel like I'm relatively new with my disease, right? So I had a symptom in June of 2017, and I was diagnosed by August of 2017 by a specialist, and I feel very fortunate about that. And I somehow kind of fell into, there was a national meeting the week later, and then I got on the planning committee for the next meeting, and now I'm here. And I'm learning a lot here that I didn't know anything about. Being a researcher in my professional life, obviously, I went on Google, and obviously I'm very skeptical about the source of what I read, and I wanted to go to the Mayo Clinic and to other reputable sources. And when I Googled myelofibrosis, I still don't really have a good understanding of which Facebook groups I'm on and what the whole organization is. And coming here now, it's starting to gel for me a little bit. And I have a PhD, and it's taking me 2 years to figure this out. And I'm thinking of the average patient, and what I think would be very helpful, since there is this global group, is to have a global MPN thing that when somebody Googles PV or ET or MF or MPN, they're going to get to that, and there's a tab that says, groups in your country, and then you go to, and then there's a pull down, and you look for your country, and it'll take you to your national organization, and then from there to regions. It'll say how to start a patient support group, and there's one on that. Clinical trials available, and there's a tab for that. Or something that says how to get involved, how to find a specialist, which patient support groups are online, so all the important things that we want to do. We want to have education for patients, we want to have support groups, and we want to have access to trials. And right, I mean, I feel like I'm missing something important that we want to do, but have those as the main tabs, but something that organizes it for the people so that they get a better understanding of what group is. I didn't even really know what I was involved in.
What?
Yeah, so I think that there are ways to really, just with the webmaster, to set up, all of those things are there, and if you just have the links and have it organized and have it in a clear way with not a lot of clutter around, I think that could really be very helpful for somebody who's first being diagnosed. That's what you want to get. The people who are newly diagnosed, they don't know anything about the disease, they're scared, and, am I going to die tomorrow? Like, what does this mean? They want to find out how to talk to other patients. They want to find out what drugs they should be on. How do they find the right doctor? Where can they go to meet other people? Those are the things I think that they should be able to find out what's available in my country. And if I have the resources, where can I travel to go to a specialist or whatever? But I think you need something that has that hierarchy built into it with the links underneath just a clear layout.
There's a quite part of this information which should come from a local, from a national information, let's say from Canada, from the States, from MPR. We are a network. We are not here really directly for the patient, but we are here for the patient advocacy group, which we have to keep that separate. What we are here is to support the patient advocacy group, and the patient advocacy group goes to the patient. Obviously, things, sometimes we can cross and we can give some general information, but I think this is something which has to be discussed also internally in the steering committee. What really do we leave to the PAG, to the patient organization, and what is, which information should appear on our side, which is not really for the patients, it's for the advocacy groups.
Yes, but she said if we create the index of MPN resource in the world.
Yeah, I think quite part of it is existing now on the site.
It could be better. It could definitely be better. It's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
Information is local. The patient is local, but
Yeah.
I agree with you, though. My idea is that you can very quickly get to find out what the definition is of these diseases, and then find out where your local group is. Then you go to your local group. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be your doctor. They're going to provide you information and tell you where to find a specialist or how to get the right medical information, but they're there to provide the support group. And that's what I mean, is to find out how to get access to the group.
Exactly. I think that's a very, very good point, and I'm sure we can do something very practical on that basis. And by the way, I think that's typical of the exactly the type of thing that we would like to hear from you guys. Relatively simple, practical things that we can do that we are uniquely enabled to be able to do. There was a question at the back, I think, there somewhere?
Yeah, it was me.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I'm kind of involved on both sides, part of the support group and also part of the board of directors for Canadian MPN. I think we need to keep everything simple. And yes, I agree. Our job is to help the support group to be built in all the region, in all the country, in all the big center. But I think we need to keep simple, because at the bottom line, all the patients who needs help, they're scared, and there are people not necessarily that have PhD and understand the big words. So a resource, a simple resource center, if we could build that, it just with a list of doctor per country, the MPN specialists. So if a support group need the information, they can just get on there and get the info. List of doctor, list. I don't think our job is to tell people what kind of medication they should be on, but I think our job is to tell them where to call to get the info, which medical center.
Part of the example is, the way we have been working with Param in India. He first came to us, to our group, and from there, we gave a basic information. And when he himself, he started also to be in contact with MPN RF, with Canadian MPF, with MPN Voice, etc. So he went to local groups to get more information. And once he has all that information, he starts to put his own group together. So, this is a little bit the way of where do you get your information from? It's and sometimes it's a bit difficult to keep this borderline. But I think this is how it should work. And, to most of the things what you said, Fritz, I agree with you. And especially that you have to find on our page where is the local PAG, out of question. Which is 100% I agree. It's there partially, but I think you have to search it. It's probably not complete. It's, it's not professional. So, this has to be done. And we have to work on that. But it is more or less, this way which we should go. And, there are other things of cooperation, but I will talk again tomorrow. And we will talk about, what we have been starting to go with Michelle on this awareness day of MPN. Where we started something very small, it was quite some fun, and we could manage to do something. But it's, all comes at the end to the same thing. It comes to the awareness of MPN AN and the awareness of the PAGs. We have to let it know to the people who are sick that they can find us. And, where we are lacking very much still some professionalism, that people can find us.
I'd just like to briefly set some expectations in terms of there being a kind of a directory of clinicians or something along those lines. I'm aware that those resources do exist, or at least they have previously existed. I'm not sure of the current status of those. I definitely remember there being a website where you could kind of look up a doctor's name. I think it was a US-based resource. I'm hesitant about getting into that process ourselves. If they exist already, we could potentially provide links to them. What I don't want to do is commit ourselves to being that resource ourselves. And there's some obvious reasons for that, about being up to date, etc. But also, there's potentially some ethical and professional reasons why we wouldn't want to be seen to be posting people in a particular direction for medical expertise. So I just wanted to set some expectations there. But where the resources exist, I think it would be reasonable to link to them. Lexi, you wanted to say something on that?
Yes. Hi, everybody. First of all, Jill, that would be the ideal situation, would be to have all of the information at every MPN patient's fingertips from all over the world. And at MPN RF, we try to include many of the things that you mentioned on our website. Resources for finding hematologists in your area, a comprehensive list of clinical trials for MPN patients. We have lists of in-person and online support groups, things like that. Something else that we run into is that there's an issue with basically it's the SEO optimization. It's having people find us, because David Wallace with PV Reporter also has a really great list of MPN specialists per.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yes, yep. And so it's just a matter of also having patients find us. You know what I mean? It's quite difficult, David, do you know where you fall in line when someone Googles that kind of thing? And exactly, so, right. So, so it's also a matter of bringing the patients to the right resources as well. That can be really tricky. But yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Go ahead, Dave.
So I see a little challenge. So I have been approached by various groups around the world to kind of help them out or work with them. And I'll just give an example, a recent group in Australia. And so I'm familiar with the Ruby Red and the other group that's well known. I can't remember the name.
MPN AA, I think?
Yeah, that's it. And this other group, they were doing a cycling thing around the country.
Yeah,
and
it just popped out now, yeah.
Yeah, and so I knew nothing about the group. I knew nothing about the people. And I'm like,
Nobody does.
okay, that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
But
It's just something which popped out on the sites, yes.
okay,
We were contacted by them also.
you were. So, how do I determine as an independent advocacy group, is this valid? Is this not valid? It didn't feel
Well, I
right.
think first you should ask us if we know about it,
Okay.
because most of that information came to us, and but cyclists also came to us. And if we know, is it serious, is it not serious, we will tell you. Sometimes, like this case, we also don't know, is it worthwhile to continue? He wanted to come here, but
Right.
without having the real information, we don't do that. It's far away, Australia, It's,
Yeah.
it's an expensive trip, So, well, you should. Yeah, he probably writes to everybody. Well, I would tell him to come in bicycle. It's probably the best thing to do.
Michelle?
You have to put your phone off.
Has anybody else got a
Okay,
mic?
there we go.
on?
Sorry. The one thing I will say is, having seen the dynamics of patient advocate groups be competitive and then cooperative, I think the last thing we want to do is be a closed group. I think we want to make sure that we find a way to work with everybody. We don't want to be the person to say, here are the rules. I think it's always good to emphasize best practices, but I don't think that we should think of ourselves as gatekeepers, because I feel like that's putting way too much responsibility on us. We should be excited that people are doing something in MPNs anywhere. And we should say, okay, well, what are some ethical guidelines that we could look to encourage them all? And of course, we have to keep ourselves on the right side of it. But I really want to make sure that we're embracing efforts that are coming up, because everyone's coming at their own level.
Sure.
I agree with that point,
Everybody agrees
Michelle.
on that, yeah, sure.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. I have two things to say before we break up, and hopefully they're both good news. The first is I would encourage everybody to take a browse around the poster area that we have on my left here. There's some fantastic work that some of the member organizations have gone to the trouble of creating some amazing posters, and I would really encourage you to have a close look at all of them. You have obviously till lunchtime tomorrow, and once you've had a look at them, I would encourage you to take one of the little cards, which is on the table at the corner there, and vote on which one you think is the best. A very simple process. We would like one vote per member organization, or per organization that is present in the room, just to keep it nice and fair. And the other point I wanted to make is a very simple logistical point, which is that the bus for the meal this evening has been pushed back. Its departure has been pushed back till 7:30. So you have a little bit longer to phone home, take a nap, have a snack, have a little walk around, whatever. So hopefully that's good news as well. Oh yeah, and the last thing, even better news. We get an extra hour tonight. So don't forget to put your watches, clocks. Presumably you've all got smartphones which will put themselves back, but just in case, We are putting our clocks back by 1 hour tonight. Even better news. Okay. Many thanks for all the great questions, contributions from you all today. I've really enjoyed being here with you all and listening to what you've had to say. And thanks again to all of our speakers. Thank you.